Hello, hello, hello. Good night, everyone. Welcome to Words of Pearls. I know it's not Saturday night or Sabbath evening, it's Sunday night. Yes. Usually I'm doing Wake the Nation, but I'm not doing Wake the Nation today. I'm doing Words of Pearls. Once again, my name is Chang-Ageda, and for those who don't know me, and you can find this message on my YouTube channel that I'll upload later to at Flo Chang-Ageda, that's FLO. And so if you know someone who would appreciate this message, you can go to my YouTube page. And remember, when you're there, like and subscribe and share. Okay. That being said, I'll also do the same for Facebook. Like and share. You know how it is. Oh, I tell you. But anyway, I continue. Tonight's message is entitled Comparison is a Thief. Did you know comparison is a thief, by the way? Well, let me tell you. Comparison, yes, it steals from us. Okay. Now, how does that happen, you'd ask? And I'll answer with a question. What causes us to compare ourselves? What about discontentment? Right? We're not contented with who we are. So let me start off with Aesop's fable. Aesop's fable of some folks call it the dog with the bone, or the dog and its reflection is its correct name. Now, when I was a young girl in elementary school, I read this this fable, and I remembered, when I read it, you know, um, it was a dog losing his bone, and he was foolish, and till my never forget my teacher asked, "Well, why did the dog lose its bone?" Because he was foolish. He was not content. No, she didn't say he wasn't content. She said he was greedy, which is true. That's what she said. He was greedy. But yeah, when we're not content with who we are, when we're not content with what we have, when we're not content. Oh, so I didn't say the story, Aesop's fable. So it was with this dog who a butcher gave like a prize meat bone to, and he had the bone and he's running along. He wants to take the bone home because he wants to make sure no other dog gets his bone. Excuse me. So he's running home with his bone, but he had to cross a bridge. And when he's crossing the bridge, he happened to stop and look down in the water. And there he sees his reflection. However, he thinks it's another dog with a bigger bone. So what does he become? Discontent with his own bone. And he jumps into the water. Now, jumping into the water, he lost his bone and almost could have lost his life. So he was in danger. Couple of stories are right there. A couple of, gems are right there for us. But I will move on. Now, Eve in the Garden of Eden, right? She was created with great power inside of her and a covering that was supernatural for both her and her husband. And now what happened? They did not have to do hard labor. They weren't created to get sick or die, right? So childbirth would have been like the easiest thing for anyone who's given birth. And for some of us, it's a lot easier. For some of us, it's the carrying the child at the 9 months or 10 months. For some of us, it's like a piece of, it's like it should have been. You carry easily, no problems, no issues. You give birth to a healthy child, right? Okay. And to God be the glory. Well, now that's how it should have been. But because of what she did, because she became dissatisfied and You can find that in Genesis 3 and 5, how because she became dissatisfied, she decided to, she looked with her eyes, and first of all, the enemy came at her and said, you know what? Mm-mm, mm-mm. You need something more. So she became discontent with what she had. She became content with who she was. She became content with what her husband has and who he was. So she was like, listen, hon, we need to enhance our lives. We need something more. We need something a little extra, right? And sometimes this is how we feel. We have a job, and yeah, I'm not happy on the job. I'm getting good pay, but I'm not happy. See, the enemy of our souls will allow us to have this, or bring to us, uh, point out, even when it's imaginary. And I'm not saying that we don't have real issues. I'm not saying you don't have real issues, right? Not saying that at all. But I know, like for myself, there were times when I would sit and think of things and see problems and issues where there weren't any. You know what I mean? And, you know, um, when that happens, we have to realize, no, that is not of God. Because when we're just moving and living in discontent to where we start grumbling and complaining about everything, and we cannot appreciate anything. And if the sun comes out, it's shining too brightly. And if there is no sunshine, it's too dull. Or if it's raining, it's too wet. And so everything we become discontent with. And basically, when when we can't find contentment within ourselves, we're not going to be content with anything at all, really. And so what happened for the dog? When he became discontent, he lost his meal, good meal, right? He did. With Eve, what happened? Well, she allowed comparison to steal from them. Comparison stole the dog's meal. Now, and something that would have brought him pleasure. He was happy with the bone. And so this comparison has now stolen, because she became discontent. And now her eyes were finally opened. Well, okay, so our eyes were open in another fashion. And she then realized, wait a minute, I just lost what I had, right? And so she realized all too late that comparison stole their glory. Comparison stole their ability to live healthily forever. Comparison stole their ability to tell plants, so, hey, produce some fruit. Give me something that I need to eat, right? Comparison just, uh, sorry about that. Let's just, comparison uh, just stole, right? Their ability to communicate with animals and have the animals communicate with them. Comparison stole their ability to live wealthily. Comparison stole their ability not to die. Comparison stole pretty much everything they had. They were banished from the Garden of Eden, a place of plenty, a place of wealth, a place of just everything good, right? Ease. And so if you have a Bible, you can read it for yourself. But I'm just saying, comparison will steal from you. So let me ask this question, do you appreciate what you have? Are you discontented? Are you now comparing the next job, someone else's life? Are you comparing yourself with your sibling, with your spouse, with your friend, with your coworkers, with your church members if you go to church, with your neighbor? You know, Comparison, keeping up with the Joneses. There was a keeping up with the Joneses. There was a certain neighbor of a certain person who, when they saw their neighbor improving upon their house, they went and improved upon their house. And sometimes it's a good thing. I mean, considering property and bringing up the value of your property. However, it was the discontentment you see that allowed. So everything the neighbor did, the other neighbor would do. So when the neighbor got a new car, they got, well, an additional car, because they kept the old car, because they had multiple drivers, many in their family, so they kept the old car and they bought a new car. Well, the neighbor did the same thing. The difference was that the neighbor who did all that, both the husband and wife, they had gotten raises, and the wife had gotten an inheritance, and the son got a raise as well. Now they had the money to do what they were doing. The other neighbor did not. So you know where that went, right? Comparison stole from them. So the thing is, you were created with creativity inside of you, right? You were created beautifully, no matter what your geographic location or culture, how you look, what you feel like. You were created beautifully. You were created with gifts and talents. You were created valuable. So, one of the things is when we start comparing ourselves with others, we're saying we weren't created right in the first place. And then that's a complaint. And see, we have to be careful of what complaining does. Being discontented and complaining causes comparison to steal from us, steal the very thing that we already have, that we think we don't have, and then steal the thing that should really come into our lives to bless us. Now, Galatians 6:4 says this: pay careful attention to your own work. Your own work. What are you doing? What is in your house? What is in your sphere? Right? For then you will get satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone. So I'll read it again. And I know I read it so disjointed, but okay. Pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else. Now, who remembers the story of Mary and Martha? We remember Mary and Martha were Lazarus' sisters, and they were friends with Jesus. And so when he went to visit them, right, Mary went and sat. Sometimes you have a friend or a relative would come by, and sometimes if there are more than one members in your family, sometimes a certain person might be a little closer or whatever. Or one person may say, you know what, let me sit with you. Because when a person comes to your home, you don't want to just leave them sitting and you're like, okay, I'll be right back. Let me go wash some dishes. Let me go cook some food. Let me go. No, you sit, you talk. They came to visit. You don't know if they have a burden on them they want to release. They might just need a couple of ears to just hear them out. Or it might just be they wanted to come and visit and enjoy a good time. So, sitting there Hold on. Oh, wait. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Sorry. My door. Okay. Wow. Yeah, sorry. Sorry about that. So that's real life. That's what you call live broadcast, right? Yeah. So the doorbell was ringing. But anyway, so here it is. Mary sits with Jesus and she's listening to him, like, how was your day? The things he was going through. Yeah, he had a long day, whatever, or what happened along the way. So many interesting, not, no, let's talk. So many interesting things would happen along the way with Jesus. So clearly, wouldn't you want to know, hey, what happened? Like if you know someone, like say, let's say, it depends on what your interests are, right? So let's say you work in art, or your spouse works in art, in the field of art, or your spouse is like a producer, or works on a movie set, or television set. And when they come home, you want to know, hey, so what happened on the job today? Who was there? What happened? What did they say? What did they do? Did you take pictures? Did you take notes? Or if it's that the person works with, maybe someone who has great gems, great work, or a financial person, and you're like, well, what happened? What's the latest? What do we invest in? What do we not invest in? Whatever it is, you just want to know, like, you're curious, right? And so Mary just wanted to know, hey, how was your day? What was it like? Martha was like, wow, I know he came a long way. I know he needs something to eat and drink. So while he's resting and relaxing, let me go make some food. Let me go cook some food. Now, there's nothing wrong with what either sisters did. Really, think about it. Really, nothing's wrong with what either sisters did, right? But then at a certain point, and I know I've been there, at a certain point, other sister Martha comes and she says to Jesus, listen, why can't you tell her to come help me cook? Why is she sitting there with you? Why do I have to do all the cooking? Huh? Was there... Now she started to compare what she was doing for him with what her sister was doing, right? She could have easily have gone and sat as her sister did, or since she chose to prepare the food, she could have done that and then come and then uh hold on 1 second again. 1 second. Yeah. Yeah, so sorry about that again. So she could have done that. And then when she's finished preparing the meal, she could bring and all of them could sit and then she say, hey, what I miss? Haven't you done that before? Like, you're the one in the kitchen and then everybody, you hear them laughing and talking, and then the food is ready and you all sit and you're enjoying the food. All you have to say is, hey, what do I miss? What did I miss? They'll catch you up on that, right? And so she could have done that, but she didn't. She was angry, wroth with her sister, and then she got incensed and a little snippy with Jesus. She was like, listen, right? So that only happened because she became discontent with the role she played instead of being content with herself. And she became discontented because she started to compare herself with her sister's role. But there was no need for that. And so what happened is that, you know, she lost out on really having that, because now you think about it. If you've been reprimanded, you're going to be a little in your feeling, right? You're going to be a mm-hmm, mm, mm, mm-hmm, right? Yeah. So um, when you're that way now, you're not going to be able to enjoy the food with the person, right? And you're not going to say, hey, well, what do I miss? Because now you really don't care. So once again, comparison was a thief in that situation as well. So, whether it's a fable or it's a parable or it's someone else's life story, we all have our own that we can look at and see where at some point comparison has caused us, has stolen from us, right? Stolen what we had, because sometimes you can get so discontented on your job that you start doing poorly at your job, and then you lose the job, the very job that you had, right? God forbid. I don't want that to happen to anybody, especially at this time with inflation and everything that's going on, all the food deserts and the wars and everything that's happening. But we're thankful that God's children are always cared for. And for those who have loved ones or loving folks who are always willing to help, that helps as well, right? So, uh, but as I said, and when you think about it in a marriage, if two people, if you're always complaining with everything your spouse do or say, at some point your spouse is going to either become either very apathetic towards you or very resentful towards you. Either which way, that's not good for a marriage. No, it's not, right? Because then they're going to, okay, some may slowly leave, and some may leave in their minds first for a while, and then others may just get up and leave, or they'll just start doing whatever. And I'm not saying any of that is correct. So if you're having that issue, I would suggest, get counseling. And I don't mean, because some of us, when we say get counseling, we go to oh, the other spouse, you need to go get counseling, or we need to. Some folks won't do counseling unless they're doing it with the person. I suggest that happens, but I also suggest that separate counseling, because when we get counseling separately, let's be honest, we'll be more honest, right, than being honest in front of the spouse. And then if the spouse, and this also goes for families as well, seriously, because some folks are so thin-skinned or sometimes blinded. Maybe I should say thin-skinned. I don't think that was appropriate. Was it? I don't know. But anyway, you know what I mean. Some folks are very sensitive. That's what I meant to say. And some folks, and I used to be one of those very sensitive people. Folks used to say I was very thin skinned, so that's where I got that from. But very sensitive. And then um, some folks are like, well, so if you say something in therapy, you're in therapy together. You could be siblings, you could be spouse, you could be parents and child, or vice versa, and adult parent, and right. And so you're having a conversation, therapists listening, and then someone says something. Oh, that's how you feel. And now, instead of us trying to work it out, we start to attack each other. So that doesn't, I would say, um, I usually suggest separate and together. But first, let's work on the separate, because as I said, I find folks tend to be more honest um, when it's done separately, right? Like just one-on-one. And and then, we could come to grip with what we're going through, and start working on ourselves. ourselves first. So when we find ourselves being discontented, it's because we're comparing ourselves with something or someone. And when we start doing that, we're in danger of losing what it is that we already have and blocking what should really come into our lives. So I pray that you will seriously, if you are a person who likes to compare yourself with others, what they have, what they've achieved, what they're getting, and it's different from. And I had another that I was going to. I have another topic that I'm going to talk about, and it's contentment. No, ambition versus what is. Hold on. I have a lot of topics. Covetousness versus ambition. So when I say that to say that being ambitious or improving upon yourself for yourself is different than when you're like you have a calling, right? And you know that you can either um, repurpose, rebrand, redo, because life's journey, it's all about growth, right? And thriving. And so just like your plant, what do you do for your plant? Your plant doesn't sit there and compare itself with the next plant. And you don't compare your plants at the rate at which they grow to you. No, you look at each plant and you treat each plant individually. Like the air plant is treated differently than I'm not sure, but than the plant that's growing. So here it is. I would have to trim this plant, right? But I don't have to trim that one. There are others that I have to change their soils, and some don't need soils at all. But I don't treat them based on what I'm doing for the other or how I see them growing. Some plants grow out, some run all over the place, others stay just in their tiny little space, and they're just so tiny and cute. And some I have to water less. Some I have to water once every 3 weeks, some once per week, you know. And then at times, winter versus summer, that's another issue. But you get the point I'm trying to make. I treat them individually, the plants, based on, right? So that's what I'm saying for us. That's what we should do. So, you know, um, I shouldn't be wanting to be comparing myself to every person or everything I see people doing, but I just do me personally as I'm led by the Lord. That being said, just wanted to share that comparison is a thief. And we read it there's a scripture for that. There are examples out there. And, just be cognizant that it is good to be contented with oneself. And when I say to be contented, not to remain stagnant, not to stay, yes, always want to thrive, to do better, and to grow and to learn a lot. And if you see that, like sometimes they have the adults continuing education, so you can do pottery, you can do sewing, and you can bake or cook or do, and then you may say, wait a minute, I didn't realize that I could do this. Or maybe it's writing, maybe it's poetry, maybe it's public speaking, or whatever it is, and you're like, wow, I didn't know I could do that. Well, that was inside of you, and now you can see the difference. But when you see someone speaking, you're like, I want to do that. Or they're giving jokes. Like, I have some friends that are just naturally funny. They say things and like normal things, and they have you laughing. And then I've known folks that they will try to make jokes for folks to laugh, and it always just falls flat, right? Now, while I appreciate those who can give good jokes, oh my goodness, because I love to laugh. I'm not aspiring to be what that's something that's inherently just natural for them. For me, I may say things that are funny at times, but I'm not that person who's that verbose and glib that can just, say something and just everybody just busts out laughing, right? So, that's an example. So it wouldn't uh now if I thought that I would like to cheer people on, make them happy, and I want to do that through the medium of giving jokes, right? Or be a comedy. What is that called? Like I can't even think of it right now. But um, and then I think I would probably, I don't know if there's a school for that, but then I would, or a class, you know what I mean? I would go and try to study that because not because I see everybody doing it, but if I feel led or feel called that, hey, maybe that's the only way I would do something like that. But as I said, just grow in your own skin then, if that makes better sense, to just grow in your own, um, learning more about you and what you're capable of doing, capable of giving, but not compare yourself to anyone else. Birds don't do it. I don't see the animals doing it, and they're surviving and thriving. So I just wanted to share that. I thought that was a revelation I had, and I was like, wow, comparison is a thief. It steals from you. So be careful of comparison and discontentment, because the emotion of this when once we start to compare, the emotion of discontentment, and then that leads to complaint, and that's another issue that I'm not going to talk about tonight. But anyway, have a wonderful new week. Today is the first day of the week, and so go on into the week and enjoy it, and know that Monday's coming and you have to get up and go to work. Don't start dreading Monday, but say, hey, I've got another day to do something grand. And even if your day is busy, just take some time out to smile, have a laugh, and be happy. Love you. Good night. Oh, let me check before I get off. Not that I'm not sure if anybody is going to be on, you know, but I'll just check just in case, because a lot of times when I get off, then I check and then I'm like, "Ooh, okay, someone was on." So I'll just check. If you're on, I'll acknowledge you. If I don't see anyone, well, you just have yourself a great weekend. So let me just see. Hey, Nadia. I see Nadia checked in. How are you? It's been such a long time. Girl, how's Colin? Anyway, have a good, wonderful new week that is to come. And know that I love you guys, and God loves us all so much more. Hope you enjoy the words of pearls. Remember, go to my YouTube channel, Flo, F-L-O, Chang-Ageda, and share. Thank you.